The smell of motor oil and metal shavings still clung to my uniform as I pulled into my driveway. 12 hours at the shop, dead tired, just wanting to see my baby. My 1967 Camaro SS that I'd spent 18 months rebuilding from a rust bucket into perfection. I hit the garage remote. The door groaned open, revealing chrome that could blind you and paint so deep you could swim in it. That's when my world exploded. Thief! Someone call 911! He stole my car! My HOA president neighbor Brenda came charging across the lawn like a rabid pit bull, cell phone already pressed to her ear. Yes, there's a black man stealing my car right this second. Send everyone! Police sirens were already wailing in the distance. She'd called before even confronting me. I'm standing in my own driveway, holding my own keys, looking at my own car. About to be arrested for theft? What would you do if your neighbor weaponized the police against you in your own driveway? Drop a flag emoji? Where are you watching from? Let's see how far this insanity travels. My name is Marcus, and I'm a third-generation mechanic. My grandfather taught my father taught me, and we've been keeping cars running in this town for 60 years. When my divorce finalized last spring, thanks to my ex-wife's sudden discovery that grease under fingernails isn't sexy, I used what little I had left to buy a modest house in Willowbrook Estates, a middle-class HOA community where the lawns are perfect, the mailboxes match, and everyone minds their own damn business. Or so the real estate agent promised. The Camaro wasn't some midlife crisis purchase. I found her at an estate sale 18 months ago, a rusted-out corpse that most people would have hauled to the scrapyard for $30. But underneath all that decay, I saw pure American muscle waiting to breathe again. $3,200 later, she was mine. Every weekend for a year and a half became my personal resurrection project. New 350 small block. Rebuilt Turbo 400 transmission, complete suspension overhaul. The paint job alone took 4 months of sanding, priming, and wet sanding until the Hugger orange finish could blind low-flying aircraft. I documented every bolt, every gasket, every drop of sweat with photos for insurance purposes, kept every receipt in a 3-ring binder thicker than a phone book. The smell of fresh primer and metal shavings became my Saturday morning cologne, coffee growing cold on my workbench while I lost myself in the meditation of mechanical perfection. Enter Brenda Wilson, the human embodiment of a homeowners association fever dream. Brenda moved to Willowbrook 5 years ago and immediately appointed herself queen of everything. Real estate agent who drives a white BMW that gets detailed more often than most people shower. Manicured nails that have never touched actual work. Highlighted hair that defies gravity. And a smile that could freeze antifreeze. She'd been HOA president for 3 years running, unopposed, because nobody else wanted to volunteer for neighborhood Gestapo duty. Her specialty was weaponizing paperwork. Trash cans left out 12 minutes past pickup. Fence posts measuring 2 1/8 inches instead of regulation 2 inches. Mailbox fonts that weren't Willowbrook approved. The woman once cited me for grass that allegedly exceeded the 2.5-inch maximum, showed up with an actual ruler. Just maintaining community standards, she'd said with that synthetic smile. 2 weeks before the garage door incident, she'd marched over while I was bleeding brake lines. The screech of my impact wrench apparently offended her delicate sensibilities. Excuse me, but there's a noise ordinance. No power tools after 6 p.m. I wiped my hands on a shop rag, stayed diplomatic. Actually, city ordinance permits hobby work until 9 p.m. Happy to show you the documentation. Her smile turned arctic. Well, we'll see about that. This kind of industrial activity affects property values. The way she said industrial activity, like I was running a meth lab instead of restoring American history. The day everything exploded started with Brenda's monthly pool party extravaganza. Saturday morning, her backyard filled with neighborhood wives sipping mimosas and pretending to care about each other's vacation photos. I could hear the artificial laughter through my garage walls. Then her voice cut through the chatter. like fingernails on glass. "Oh, that's my new Camaro. Just bought it from a classic car dealer in Phoenix. 45,000, but totally worth it. They're shipping it next week." My socket wrench clattered to the concrete floor. She was showing people photos on her phone, photos of a car identical to mine, basking in their impressed ooze like she'd personally invented the combustion engine. That afternoon, needing brake fluid, I fired up my baby and backed out slowly. The 350's rumble echoed off the houses like mechanical thunder, deep and primal and absolutely gorgeous. When I returned an hour later, Brenda stood in her driveway like a statue of suburban rage, arms crossed, face flushed. Staring at my car with the intensity of a hawk watching a field mouse, I nodded politely. She didn't respond, just kept boring holes through my Camaro with those predator eyes. That night, I'm betting she spent hours online building her delusion brick by digital brick, convincing herself that somehow, some way, I'd stolen her imaginary purchase by morning. She'd transformed from annoying neighbor into something far more dangerous. A Karen with a cause. When 2 patrol cars screeched into my driveway with full light show blazing, I knew my peaceful Saturday evening was officially screwed. 4 officers poured out like they were responding to an armed bank robbery, which, according to Brenda's Academy Award-worthy 911 performance, they were Officer Rodriguez, a 20-year veteran with kind eyes, and the patient demeanor of someone who'd seen every flavor of neighborhood crazy, approached with his hand resting casually on his belt. His partner, a younger guy named Morgan, who looked like he bench-pressed squad cars for cardio, flanked him with notebook ready. "Evening, sir. We received a report about a stolen vehicle at this address." The sheer absurdity hit me like a brick to the forehead. "Stolen vehicle, officer? This is my car, in my garage, at my house. That's like saying I stole my own refrigerator." Brenda materialized beside the officers like a suburban poltergeist, still clutching her phone with white knuckles. "That's him. That's the car thief. I just bought that exact Camaro yesterday for 45,000. I took B system. Took a deep breath, tasting the lingering exhaust fumes from my perfectly legal muscle car, and trying not to laugh at the cosmic joke my life had become. "Stay calm," I reminded myself. My old man always said, "Documentation beats desperation every time." "Officers, I can prove ownership right now." I pulled out my phone, scrolling to the photo album I'd obsessively maintained. "This car has been mine for 18 months. I rebuilt every bolt from scratch." Rodriguez studied the progression photos with genuine interest. Rust bucket to rolling chassis to painted perfection, his eyebrows climbed as he swiped through images of me installing the engine block. Priming body panels, stitching the interior. "That's some serious craftsmanship," he murmured, zooming in on a shot of the engine bay. "You do this professionally? Family business. My grandfather would have beaten me with a wrench if I'd done sloppy work." Meanwhile, Brenda was having what appeared to be a full psychological break. "He's lying. Look at these." She thrust printed photos at the officers, clearly downloaded from some dealer website 5 minutes before calling 911. "I wired the money yesterday. They were shipping it this week." Officer Morgan examined her evidence with the enthusiasm of someone reviewing tax documents. Generic dealer stock photos, no VIN numbers, no actual paperwork, just glossy images that could have been any orange Camaro built between 1967 and yesterday. "Ma'am, do you have purchase documentation? Bill of sale, wire transfer receipts, dealer contact information?" Brenda's face turned the approximate color of a fire engine. It's all being processed." The dealer said, "Paperwork takes time for classic cars." While she improvised her explanation, I was digging through my garage workbench like an automotive archaeologist. 3-ring binder, organized by date, containing the complete genealogy of my mechanical baby. "Here's my DMV registration," I said, handing Rodriguez the holy grail of vehicle ownership. 18 months old, my name, this address. Matching VIN. His flashlight beam danced across the official state document. Everything aligned perfectly. Numbers, dates, signatures, the works, insurance policy. 2. I flipped to the next plastic sleeve. Progressive required photos of the restoration progress for agreed value coverage. Morgan was scribbling notes, occasionally glancing at Brenda's increasingly creative explanations. The woman was unraveling faster than a clearance sweater, and I was starting to feel almost sorry for her. Almost. Officers, he obviously forged everything. He's probably running some sophisticated identity theft operation. That accusation was my cue to deploy the nuclear option. From the very back of my binder, I extracted a piece of yellow legal paper, edges soft from handling and memory, written in the shaky cursive of a 93-year-old widow. 1967, Chevrolet Camaro. Condition as is, extensive rust damage throughout. $3,200 cash. Buyer assumes all responsibility. Below that, a signature that belonged in a museum. Eleanor Hutchinson estate sale. Followed by a phone number and date from 18 months ago. Rodriguez examined the handwritten bill of sale like he'd discovered buried treasure. This is the original purchase document. Eleanor was selling her late husband's project cars. Sweetest lady you'd ever meet. Made me promise to bring the car back for her to see when I finished. The silence that followed was so complete, I could hear my neighbor's sprinkler system 3 houses down. Morgan closed his notebook with the finality of a judge's gavel. Ma'am, this gentleman has clear chain of ownership documentation spanning over a year. Your evidence appears to be internet printouts. Rodriguez's tone shifted to that special register cops reserve for people having public meltdowns. Ma'am, I need to inform you that filing a false police report is a misdemeanor offense in this state. My dad was a prosecutor for 30 years, and I've seen people get real jail time for knowingly providing false information to law enforcement. The color drained from Brenda's face like someone had opened a valve. There must be some terrible mistake. The stress of car shopping. You know how confusing these things can be. But her eyes told a different story. As the officers prepared to leave, I caught her staring at me through her living room window with the cold calculation of a chess master planning her next move. This wasn't over. This was just round 1. Monday morning slapped me awake with the subtlety of a diesel engine backfiring. I'm stumbling to my mailbox in yesterday's work clothes, coffee mug steaming in the crisp air, when I spot the official HOA violation notice tucked inside like a venomous snake. Notice of covenant violation. Unauthorized commercial vehicle storage. The citation claimed my work van, a perfectly ordinary Ford Transit with Rodriguez Family Auto painted on the side. Violated community standards, $200 fine, 48-hour compliance deadline. At the bottom, Brenda's signature flourished like she just signed my death warrant. Through my kitchen window, I watched her power walk past my driveway, shooting glances at my van like it was parked on her grandmother's grave. Her morning jog route had mysteriously expanded to include 17 passes by my house, I counted. Here's what most homeowners don't realize about HOA covenants. They're actual legal contracts, not suggestions written by suburban dictators having midlife crises. My divorce lawyer taught me that everything has a paper trail, and paper trails don't lie. I spent my lunch break at the county courthouse, digging through public records like an automotive archaeologist. What I discovered was better than finding a winning lottery ticket in my back pocket. My van, purchased in 2017, 3 years before Willowbrook enacted their commercial vehicle restrictions in 2020, any vehicles owned before rule changes are automatically grandfathered in, protected by law from retroactive enforcement. Brenda could complain until her vocal cords snapped, but she had zero legal authority. I drafted a response that would have made my old man proud, attached copies of my purchase documentation, and hand-delivered it to the HOA management office. The receptionist's eyes widened as she read my rebuttal, probably calculating how much trouble her Star Board member had just bought herself. "Oh, dear," she whispered, like she was watching a car accident in slow motion. "Mrs. Wilson isn't going to appreciate this development." She had that right. By Wednesday, my mailbox had become Brenda's personal complaint distribution center. 3 more violation notices materialized like bad magic. Alleged oil stains on my driveway. I power wash monthly with the dedication of a monk. Excessive automotive odors from my garage. Apparently, the honest smell of WD-40 and determination offended her delicate suburban sensibilities. And noise violations during perfectly legal hours. The woman was carpet bombing me with paperwork, hoping something would stick long enough to cause damage. That's when I made the smartest investment of this entire war. I went full Big Brother on my own property. 4 high-definition security cameras, strategically positioned, all recording to cloud storage with night vision that could spot a mosquito landing on my mailbox. The footage revealed Brenda's new hobby: property line surveillance, every morning. She'd patrol our shared fence with her iPhone, taking photos, measuring distances with a collapsible yardstick that probably cost more than my monthly grocery budget. The woman had turned neighbor watching into an Olympic sport. Thursday evening brought the nuclear option, an emergency board meeting to address my ongoing violations. The notice appeared in my mailbox at 4 p.m. for a 7 p.m. meeting. Barely legal notification designed to prevent anyone from mounting an actual defense. I showed up at the community center expecting a kangaroo court and found something worse. 3 middle-aged women sitting around a conference table like they were planning a church fundraiser. Brenda, her nervous lieutenant Clara, who apologized for breathing too loudly, and Janet, whose primary qualification appeared to be nodding enthusiastically at everything Brenda said. "Where's the rest of the board?" I asked, claiming a chair across from this improvised tribunal. Brenda's smile could have preserved meat for winter. "This is quite sufficient for tonight's business. We're implementing an emergency ban on all automotive repair activities, effective immediately. Past violations carry a $500 fine." I pulled out my phone and opened the HOA bylaws I'd memorized that afternoon. Knowledge is power, but applied knowledge is a tactical nuclear weapon. Fascinating theory, but Section 4.3 requires 7 days advance notice for voting matters. I scrolled through the document like I was reading a restaurant menu, and Section 4.7 mandates a quorum of 5 board members for official votes. I count 3 people, which gives this meeting all the legal authority of a neighborhood book club. Clara's face turned the color of overcooked shrimp. "Well, this is just preliminary discussion, and Section 2.9 states that invalid meetings create personal liability for individual board members." I'd done my homework. Thanks to 3 hours of legal research and a pot of very strong coffee, Brenda's composure shattered like safety glass. "You think you're so smart, don't you? Coming into our neighborhood with your people and your activities." The venom in her voice could have stripped paint. But my old man taught me something valuable about dealing with bullies. Stay calm, stick to facts, let crazy people hang themselves with their own rope. "I think I'm a homeowner who reads contracts before signing them," I replied. "Novel concept, I know." That's when neighbor Tom appeared in my driveway later. Apologetic and slightly embarrassed. "Most of us think she's completely lost it," he confided. "Want to grab coffee tomorrow?" I think it's time we talked. Friday morning brought an unexpected doorbell symphony at 7:15 a.m. Dave Martinez from City Code Enforcement stood on my porch, clipboard in hand, and the 1,000-yard stare of someone who'd spent too many years mediating neighbor wars. "Sorry to bother you this early, Mr. Rodriguez. Anonymous complaint about unlicensed commercial auto repair. Mind if I take a look?" I let him into my garage, where the morning light illuminated my weekend sanctuary. The smell of metal polish and clean motor oil hung in the air like expensive aftershave, and every tool had its designated home on pegboard walls that would make a Swiss watchmaker weep with envy. Dave's tension evaporated the moment he stepped inside. "Jesus, This is cleaner than the shop where I get my truck serviced." He ran his finger along my workbench, coming up spotless. "What do you do for work?" "Family mechanic business. This is pure hobby. Weekends only. No customers." He nodded, scribbling notes while admiring my engine hoist setup. "Anonymous complainant claimed you were running an illegal business. I see zero evidence of commercial activity, customer vehicles, or cash transactions. You're absolutely golden." As Dave climbed back into his city truck, he paused with one foot on the running board. "Off the record, I've been to this neighborhood 4 times this month. Same voice every time, different complaints. Lady needs a hobby that doesn't involve my department." Brenda's next master stroke arrived via certified mail, a formal complaint to my homeowner's insurance company. She'd contacted Progressive directly, claiming my garage activities created an unacceptable fire hazard threatening neighboring properties. The letter demanded immediate inspection or policy cancellation. When my insurance agent Bill showed up Tuesday afternoon, I braced for bureaucratic hell. Instead, I found a kindred spirit who spent the first 10 minutes admiring my Camaro's engine bay like it was the Sistine Chapel. "Someone's definitely trying to screw with you," he said, signing his inspection report with a flourish. "Your fire safety setup exceeds commercial standards. Half these neighborhood garages are death traps with their propane tanks and extension cord Christmas trees." Bill's company responded by sending Brenda a cease and desist letter that basically translated to, "Stop filing false insurance claims or we'll prosecute you for fraud, Karen." But our neighborhood Napoleon had discovered the nuclear weapon of modern warfare: social media. The Willowbrook Neighborhood Watch Facebook group materialized overnight like a digital cancer. Brenda's inaugural post featured photos of my work van and garage, accompanied by prose that would make a dog whistle manufacturer proud. "Just concerned about maintaining our beautiful community standards," she wrote, with enough artificial sweetness to cause diabetes. "Some recent activities might be more appropriate in industrial zones, don't you think?" Tom showed me the screenshots over coffee, his face redder than a fire engine. 23 people joined in the first hour. It's like watching a dumpster fire. But you can't look away. The comments section became a gladiatorial arena. Several neighbors jumped to my defense, sharing their own Brenda horror stories. Others lurked silently, probably calculating the social cost of opposing the HOA's reigning dictator. Brenda's digital dictatorship imploded when she started deleting disagreeable comments. Nothing ignites suburban fury quite like obvious censorship. And soon the group fractured into warring factions, debating everything from free speech to property values. Sunday morning brought escalation to my actual property. 24 roofing nails scattered across my driveway like metallic confetti, strategically positioned to puncture unwary tires. My security cameras captured the 2 a.m. perpetrator, a figure in a dark hoodie, moving with the nervous energy of someone committing their first felony. The footage was grainy, but that distinctive quick-step march looked familiar. Brenda walked like she was perpetually late for an argument. Officer Morgan treated my police report with appropriate seriousness, especially when I explained the escalating harassment timeline. "Classic intimidation pattern," he observed. "Photographing the evidence. Document everything. These cases simmer for months, then explode into arrests very quickly." While obsessively reviewing camera footage, I spotted something that made my coffee go cold. Brenda's morning routine now included detailed reconnaissance missions, walking our property line with her phone, measuring distances, photographing angles. This wasn't random harassment. She was conducting military-grade surveillance for some larger operation. Wednesday's mail delivered the nuclear option, an anonymous letter on generic printer paper. "Your kind doesn't belong here. Leave voluntarily, or face escalating consequences." No signature, no return address, but the paper stock matched Brenda's HOA notices perfectly. My divorce lawyer had taught me enough about document analysis to recognize identical watermarks and printer signatures. Detective Martinez, assigned to my growing case file, examined the letter with professional interest. Anonymous threatening correspondence qualifies for hate crime prosecution under both state and federal statutes, she explained. We're building a substantial criminal case against your neighbor. That evening, Tom's Coffee Shop coalition expanded to 6 households, each armed with their own Brenda documentation. Mike, the lawyer, had been fined for unauthorized mailbox fonts. Sarah, the accountant, got cited for planting flowers without architectural committee approval. Time for coordinated resistance, Tom declared, stirring sugar with revolutionary fervor. Individual complaints get ignored. Group action gets results. As we shared war stories and legal strategies, I realized Brenda had accidentally created her own worst nightmare. A unified neighborhood opposition with legitimate grievances and professional expertise. The hunter had become the hunted. Friday afternoon found me in the county courthouse basement, a fluorescent-lit purgatory that smelled like old coffee and bureaucratic despair. The records clerk, a woman who'd apparently been filing documents since the Carter administration, directed me to research Room B with the enthusiasm of someone pointing toward a public restroom. HOA financial records are in the corporate filings, she wheezed, sliding a dusty box across the counter. Good luck making sense of that mess. 3 hours later, surrounded by paper stacks that looked like a tornado had hit an accounting firm, I discovered why Brenda guarded these documents like nuclear launch codes. Willowbrook's HOA financial statements read like a masterclass in creative embezzlement. $15,000 paid to BNB Property Solutions for undefined consulting services. $8,500 to Brenda's Best Gardens for landscaping that had never materialized. $12,000 to Wilson and Associates for legal services that coincidentally began exactly when Brenda's divorce proceedings started. The beautiful part, all 3 companies shared the same business address, 1247 Maple Lane, Brenda's house. A quick dive into the state business registry confirmed what my gut already knew. BNB Property Solutions. Sole proprietor Brenda Wilson, established 6 months after her divorce filing. Brenda's Best Gardens, officially dissolved last year after completing 0 actual projects. Wilson and Associates, her ex-husband's law firm, which explained her sudden need for untraceable income. Our elected HOA president had been systematically looting the neighborhood fund like a suburban Pablo Escobar, funneling approximately $78,000 into her personal legal defense fund over 2 years. But the discovery that made my hands shake wasn't the theft itself. It was the hunting pattern hidden beneath. Cross-referencing complaint dates with recent real estate sales, I uncovered Brenda's true business model. She'd systematically target homeowners with escalating harassment until they sold below market value, then use her real estate license to facilitate quick sales to investor contacts. Double commission plus kickbacks from grateful buyers, picking up distressed properties. 3 families had fled Willowbrook in the past year after surviving Brenda's special attention. The Hendersons sold $40,000 under appraisal after months of citations about their son's basketball hoop creating excessive noise. The Patels surrendered and moved after weekly violations for culturally inappropriate cooking odors that allegedly violated community standards. My case fit her playbook perfectly. Single homeowner, no family support network, prime property worth $380,000. Perfect target for forced sale manipulation. The nuclear revelation was buried in a stack of foreclosure notices, and when I found it, I actually laughed out loud in that tomb-quiet research room. Brenda's own house was in default. $23,000 in unpaid HOA dues to her own association. Back taxes, attorney fees, credit card debt. The works? Her foreclosure hearing was scheduled for exactly 4 weeks from today. The irony was so perfect. It belonged in a country song, our HOA president. The woman who terrorized neighbors over minor rule violations hadn't paid her own dues in over a year. Everything clicked into focus like adjusting a camera lens. The escalating desperation, the increasingly unhinged harassment, the willingness to file false police reports. Brenda wasn't just a power-hungry Karen. She was a cornered animal facing financial obliteration. And I represented her last chance at a major commission before the bank seized everything. The Camaro incident had given her the perfect excuse to accelerate her timeline. I photocopied everything, my hands trembling slightly as the machine hummed through page after page of evidence. $17 for the privilege of documenting my neighbor's criminal enterprise. The best money I'd ever spent. Walking back to my truck in the courthouse parking lot, I called Tom with news that would reshape our entire strategy. "You sitting down?" "Because what I just found changes everything." The war was about to shift from survival to offense, and Brenda had no idea the trap was closing around her. Saturday morning transformed Tom's garage into mission control for Operation Takedown Karen. The air smelled like coffee, motor oil, and the sweet scent of impending justice. As our motley crew of suburban rebels gathered around a folding table that had seen better decades, Tom had assembled what I could only describe as the Avengers of neighborhood warfare. Sarah Morgan, a forensic accountant who could spot embezzlement like a bloodhound tracking bacon. Mike Patterson, a semi-retired corporate lawyer whose idea of fun was destroying people in depositions. Linda Martinez, a high school teacher with organizational skills that would make NASA jealous. And Carlos Mendez, a contractor who knew every building code loophole in the Tri-County area. "Jesus Christ on a cracker," Sarah muttered, spreading Brenda's financial records across the table like a CSI investigator examining murder evidence. "This woman's embezzlement technique has all the subtlety of a brick through a window." Mike pushed his reading glasses up his nose, scanning documents with the predatory focus of a shark smelling blood. 78,000 in fraudulent transactions. Paper trail cleaner than my grandmother's kitchen. Documented harassment pattern. Prosecutors dream about cases this easy. Linda was already creating her signature color-coded timeline on poster board, mapping harassment campaigns against real estate sales with the precision of someone who'd spent 20 years making teenagers understand algebra. "Look at this beautiful pattern. Target vulnerable families, escalate violations for months, then mysteriously produce investor buyers when they break." Carlos leaned back in his folding chair, letting out a whistle that could summon dogs from 3 blocks away. "And she's using HOA money to pay divorce lawyers. That's not criminal genius. That's criminal stupid." Our battle plan emerged over 2 hours of increasingly caffeinated strategy sessions. Operation Documentation Fortress. Carlos volunteered to turn our neighborhood into Fort Knox with security cameras, motion sensors, night vision, cloud backup. "If this woman so much as glances sideways at your mailbox, we'll have it documented in courtroom-quality 4K. Linda launched into full teacher mode, creating standardized incident report forms with the thoroughness of someone designing a final exam. Dates, times, witnesses, photographs, police report numbers. We're building a case file so airtight it could survive a nuclear blast. Sarah was practically rubbing her hands together with forensic accounting glee. "I'm calling colleagues who owe me favors. We'll produce an independent audit that meets federal court standards." Operation Legal Annihilation. Mike explained HOA corporate governance like he was describing his favorite hobby, which it apparently was. Board members have fiduciary duties under state law. Every fraudulent transaction creates personal liability. She's not just stealing, she's destroying her own legal protection. The annual board elections were perfectly timed for maximum damage. Tom, Sarah, and Mike would run for the 3 open positions. Flipping control from Brenda's rubber stamp committee to our Justice Coalition, criminal complaint gets filed Tuesday, Mike continued, organizing police reports with the satisfaction of someone solving a crossword puzzle. Embezzlement, harassment, false police reports. She's looking at a felony buffet. Operation Public Humiliation. Linda's teaching background made her our propaganda minister. Door-to-door information campaign. Professional flyers explaining the theft. Coordinated social media exposure. We make Brenda's crimes everybody's dinner table conversation. The financial impact was neighborhood-destroying. 78,000 stolen from 40 households meant every family had been systematically overcharged nearly $2,000. When soccer moms discover their HOA president has been picking their pockets, suburban revolutions happen fast. Carlos suggested the media angle that would make this story journalist catnip. HOA president steals money while racially harassing neighbors. Channel 7 would interrupt regular programming for this goldmine. Our psychological warfare strategy was elegantly simple. Let Brenda think she was winning while we constructed a legal cage around her. I'd maintain normal routines, appear oblivious to her schemes, and allow her desperation to generate more prosecutable evidence. Classic rope-a-dope, Mike explained, with the satisfaction of someone who'd spent decades destroying opponents in courtrooms. Let her exhaust herself throwing wild punches while we document every missed swing. The timeline convergence was poetry. Brenda's foreclosure hearing in 3 weeks. Audit results in 2 weeks. Board elections in 4 weeks. Multiple disasters arriving simultaneously like a perfectly choreographed demolition. Sarah had already contacted Channel 7's investigative pitbull, Janet Mills, a reporter who'd built her Emmy collection exposing suburban corruption. HOA fraud stories generate massive ratings. She's practically drooling to cover this train wreck. Mike discovered the final nail for Brenda's professional coffin. Her real estate license renewal in 6 weeks required criminal background disclosure. Fraud convictions meant automatic permanent revocation. Complete career obliteration, he said, with the warm satisfaction of someone describing a perfect sunset. Financial ruin plus professional destruction equals total annihilation. As our suburban war council dispersed, Tom grabbed my shoulder with genuine respect. 2 months ago, you were the quiet mechanic who minded his own business. Now you're commanding a neighborhood revolution. I surveyed our evidence walls, battle plans, and coalition schedules. The transformation from isolated target to resistance leader felt surreal, like discovering you could fly. Sometimes bullies pick the wrong victim, I replied. Brenda's about to learn that lesson the hard way. The trap was baited, loaded, and perfectly positioned. Now, we just waited for our cornered predator to trigger her own destruction. Monday morning brought the sweet sound of panic in the form of Brenda's voice, echoing across the neighborhood like a fire alarm having a nervous breakdown. She was pacing her driveway at 7 a.m., phone pressed to her ear, gesticulating wildly at anyone unfortunate enough to make eye contact. I need an emergency board meeting tonight. Something's happening. And I need legal protection. Through my kitchen window, I watched her attempt to rally her rapidly shrinking support base. Clara shuffled over reluctantly, looking like she'd rather be getting a root canal. Janet followed a few minutes later, but even from a distance, I could see the doubt creeping into their body language. The emergency assessment notice appeared in every mailbox by noon. $500 per household for immediate legal defense against outside agitators attempting to destabilize community governance. The letter claimed I was threatening to sue the entire HOA and demanded immediate payment to hire attorneys. What Brenda didn't know was that Tom attended her pathetic 3-person meeting, hidden in the community center parking lot with a digital recorder that picked up every desperate word. They're investigating our finances. Brenda's voice crackled through the speaker when Tom played it back later. I don't know how much they know, but we need to control the narrative before this gets out of hand. Clara's nervous response was barely audible. Brenda, maybe we should just— No! I've worked too hard building this community to let them destroy everything. If I have to leave town, fine. But I'm not going down alone. The audio quality was courtroom ready, and Mike's predatory grin when he heard it could have powered the neighborhood streetlights. Wednesday night brought Brenda's first act of genuine desperation. Vandalism with a side of stupidity. My security cameras caught her sneaking around my property at 2:47 a.m. Twins, dressed like a suburban ninja in black yoga pants and a dark hoodie that fooled absolutely no one. She'd brought a toolkit of petty revenge, tire-slashing knife, spray paint, and what appeared to be small containers of motor oil staged behind my garage. The plan was, obviously, to create evidence of environmental violations, but Brenda had never been accused of criminal genius. The beautiful part? She spent 15 minutes positioning fake evidence while standing directly under my motion-activated floodlight, providing crystal-clear footage of her face, her BMW's license plate, and her pathetic attempt at frame-up artistry. Thursday morning's code enforcement visit was her most spectacular failure yet. The inspector found the planted oil containers immediately. They still had Home Depot price stickers attached. When he pointed out that fresh motor oil doesn't create environmental violations anyway, Brenda's story collapsed faster than a house of cards in a hurricane. "Ma'am, filing false environmental reports is a federal offense," the inspector explained with barely concealed irritation. "I'm documenting this incident and forwarding it to our fraud investigation unit." Brenda's social media meltdown began that afternoon and continued through the weekend like a digital dumpster fire that nobody could look away from. The Willowbrook Neighborhood Watch Facebook group became her personal therapy session, complete with increasingly unhinged rants about outside agitators and property value destruction. Her 2 a.m. post on Friday was a masterpiece of self-incrimination. Some people don't understand that communities have standards. When certain elements move in and start changing the character of established neighborhoods, decent people have to take action to protect their investments. Screenshot saved. Forwarded to our legal team, Saturday brought the bribery attempt that sealed her fate. Carlos was installing camera equipment at Linda's house when Brenda approached with the subtlety of a used car salesman at month end. "I know Marcus is paying you people to lie about me," she said, pulling out an envelope thick enough to choke a horse. $2,000 cash if you forget about those security cameras and stop helping with this harassment campaign. Carlos, bless his contractor's soul, kept installing cameras while recording the entire conversation on his phone. "Ma'am, I'm just helping neighbors protect their property. Maybe you should talk to a lawyer." "I don't need lawyers. I need this neighborhood back under control." Her voice pitched higher than a smoke detector. "That man has turned everyone against me with his lies and manipulation." The desperation was so thick you could spread it on toast. Brenda was unraveling in real time, and every frantic move was creating more evidence for our growing prosecution file. Sunday evening brought the nuclear option. Another false police report claiming I'd threatened her with a weapon during a driveway confrontation that never happened. The responding officers found me in my garage, covered in grease, working on a neighbor's transmission with 3 witnesses present. Officer Morgan's patience had officially evaporated. "Ma'am, this is your 4th false report in 2 weeks. You're looking at charges." The preliminary audit results arrived Monday via Sarah's encrypted email, and the numbers were even worse than our original estimates. Brenda hadn't just stolen $78,000. She'd been systematically overcharging every household for phantom services while pocketing the excess. Total theft, approximately $96,000 over 30 months. Our neighborhood dictator wasn't just broke and desperate. She was a career criminal who'd finally run out of victims and time. The endgame was accelerating beyond our wildest projections, and Brenda was doing all the work for us. Tuesday night's break-in was the kind of criminal masterpiece that would make the Three Stooges proud. At 2:33 a.m., while normal people were dreaming about vacation destinations and winning lottery numbers, Brenda was living her best burglar life at the HOA management office. The security footage looked like a rejected scene from a heist movie, written by someone who'd never actually committed a crime. There was our suburban Napoleon, using a stolen master key with all the stealth of a rhinoceros in tap shoes, frantically feeding documents into an industrial shredder like she was making the world's most expensive confetti. The silent alarm triggered faster than Brenda's common sense had abandoned her, and Officer Rodriguez arrived to find her elbow-deep in evidence destruction, surrounded by paper snow that used to be financial records. "Ma'am, step away from the computer and put your hands where I can see them," Rodriguez commanded, probably wondering how his Tuesday night shift had turned into amateur hour at the crime academy. Brenda's response was pure daytime television gold. "You don't understand? They're destroying everything I've built. This community was perfect before they came." The smell of overheated electronics and desperate sweat filled the office as she was cuffed and read her rights. Watching the footage later, I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. Until I remembered the fake police reports, tire-slashing incidents. Bail was set at $25,000, which for Brenda might as well have been $25 million. Considering her financial situation resembled the Titanic after meeting the iceberg, she spent 3 days in county lockup. Probably the first time in her adult life she'd been somewhere without a manager to complain to. While our fallen dictator was enjoying government hospitality, Clara made the decision that would seal Brenda's fate forever. She visited the jail with a digital recorder hidden in her purse, and what she captured was prosecutorial poetry. "I need your help. Clara!" Brenda's voice cracked through the phone speaker when Clara played the recording for our coalition. The desperation was so thick you could taste it. "There's money in my garage behind the water heater, Cash. We can both disappear before this gets worse." Clara's nervous response barely registered. "Brenda, I can't. 50,000. Help me. And we start over somewhere they don't know us." Mike whistled low when he heard the recording. "Admissions of theft, conspiracy, flight risk, obstruction of justice. This woman just confessed to everything while sitting in jail. It's like she's trying to set records for criminal stupidity." Thursday evening's emergency neighborhood meeting packed the community center beyond capacity. The air crackled with righteous fury and the distinctive aroma of community center coffee that could strip paint. 43 households showed up, and the collective anger could have powered Las Vegas for a week. Tom presented Sarah's final audit results with the satisfaction of someone revealing a straight flush. The numbers were staggering. Brenda hadn't just stolen $78,000. She'd operated a criminal enterprise that included phantom vendor payments, inflated service contracts, and kickback schemes totaling $112,000 over 3 years. "Every single family in this room has been systematically robbed," Tom announced to gasps and creative profanity that would make sailors blush. Average theft per household, $2,800. The vote of no confidence was unanimous, except for Janet, who abstained while looking like she wanted to tunnel through the floor and emerge somewhere in Canada. 33 households demanded Brenda's immediate removal, criminal prosecution, and full restitution with interest. Friday morning brought the media circus Brenda had always craved, just not in the starring role she'd imagined. Channel 7's news van arrived at dawn, followed by crews from competing stations who'd caught wind of the suburban scandal goldmine. Investigative reporter Janet Mills interviewed neighbors with the enthusiasm of someone who'd stumbled onto Emmy material. The evening news led with HOA president arrested in massive embezzlement scheme, complete with Brenda's mugshot and security footage of her document-shredding performance art. My interview required every ounce of diplomatic training my divorce had provided. "This isn't about revenge or getting even," I told the camera, choosing words carefully. "It's about holding people accountable when they abuse positions of trust." The story exploded across social media faster than gossip at a high school reunion. Hochran trended nationally within hours, with thousands sharing their own nightmare stories and celebrating our neighborhood's David versus Goliath victory. Brenda's real estate career disintegrated in spectacular fashion. Her brokerage suspended her license immediately, Past clients began filing complaints about suspicious transactions, and her professional reputation became more toxic than nuclear waste. The foreclosure auction proceeded without drama. Brenda's house sold for $280,000, $70,000 below market value, because criminal investigations and news vans tend to discourage bidders. Saturday's 3 a.m. Facebook confession video was her final act of self-destruction. Sobbing into her phone camera, mascara running like abstract art, she blamed everyone except herself for the consequences of her criminal choices. "I was just trying to protect our community," she wailed to the internet. Sometimes good people have to make hard decisions. The comments section became a digital firing squad, where neighbors shared years of accumulated grievances. The video disappeared within hours, but screenshots are forever. Our suburban tyrant's reign of terror was officially over. The sentencing hearing on a crisp Thursday morning felt like the season finale of the world's most satisfying reality show. The courthouse parking lot resembled a neighborhood reunion, with 40-plus residents carpooling like we were heading to the world's most important sporting event. Judge Patricia Hernandez's courtroom was packed beyond capacity, every pew filled with faces I'd come to know as allies over the past 3 months. The smell of nervous energy and courthouse coffee mixed with the collective anticipation of people who'd waited far too long for justice. Brenda sat at the defendant's table in an orange jumpsuit that clashed spectacularly with her fake blonde highlights, looking like a deflated balloon animal beside her overworked public defender. The woman who'd once terrorized our neighborhood with clipboard authority now resembled a suburban scarecrow that had lost a fight with a tornado. Channel 7's cameras were positioned for maximum drama, and Janet Mills had scored front-row seats for what she'd already called the most satisfying HOA story of the decade. When Judge Hernandez called for victim impact statements, I stood first, my heart hammering against my ribs like it was trying to escape. 3 months ago, I'd been a quiet mechanic who kept to himself. Today, I was speaking for an entire community. Your Honor, this case started with a woman calling 911 because I opened my own garage door, I began, my voice steadier than I'd expected. But it was never really about a car. It was about power, control, and what happens when someone decides they can terrorize their neighbors without consequences. I described the escalating harassment, the fake police reports, the systematic theft that had robbed every family of thousands of dollars. But mostly, I talked about fear, the way Brenda had weaponized authority to make people afraid in their own homes. She didn't just steal our money, I continued, making eye contact with Brenda, who refused to look back. She stole our peace of mind, our sense of community, our belief that neighbors look out for each other instead of preying on each other. Tom spoke next, his postal worker's voice carrying the authority of someone who'd seen human nature at its worst and best. Sarah presented the financial evidence with forensic precision. Linda described the educational impact of watching their community stand up to corruption. When it was Brenda's turn, her attorney launched into a performance worthy of community theater. Mental health struggles, divorce trauma, financial pressure, every excuse except personal responsibility for criminal behavior. "My client deeply regrets her actions," the public defender pleaded. "She's willing to make full restitution and undergo counseling." Brenda finally stood to address the court, and what came out was pure, undiluted audacity wrapped in crocodile tears. "I never meant to hurt anyone," she sobbed, dabbing her eyes with tissues that had seen more action than a NASCAR pit crew. "This community meant everything to me. I was just trying to maintain standards, protect property values. Sometimes people don't understand that leadership requires difficult decisions." The courtroom's collective eye roll was practically audible. Even her own attorney looked like he wanted to crawl under the defense table. Judge Hernandez had clearly heard enough for one lifetime. "Ms. Wilson, in 30 years on this bench, I've rarely encountered such a systematic abuse of fiduciary responsibility combined with racial harassment and criminal intimidation." She paused, studying Brenda with the expression of someone examining an interesting but repulsive insect specimen. You held a position of trust and used it to steal from the very people who elected you. You targeted a minority homeowner with false police reports that could have resulted in tragedy. You destroyed evidence, attempted to flee jurisdiction, and even now refuse to accept responsibility for your crimes. The judge's voice carried the weight of absolute authority. This court sentences you to 4 years in state prison, full restitution of $100,000 to $12,000 plus court costs, and 5 years supervised probation following release. The gavel came down like thunder, and the courtroom erupted in applause that Judge Hernandez didn't even try to quiet. 40 households getting justice sounds different than regular applause. It's deeper, more satisfying, like the sound of the universe correcting itself. As Brenda was led away in shackles, she finally looked back at our section of the courtroom. The expression on her face wasn't remorse or apology. It was pure, concentrated hatred for people who'd dared to hold her accountable. Outside on the courthouse steps, with cameras rolling and neighbors celebrating, a reporter thrust a microphone in my direction. "Mr. Rodriguez, what would you tell other homeowners dealing with HOA abuse?" I thought about everything we'd been through. The fear, the documentation, the coalition building, the months of preparation that led to this moment. Document everything, build community. Truth wins, I said. Feeling the weight of 3 months' worth of struggle and triumph in those 6 words, the quote would go viral within hours, becoming a rallying cry for HOA reform movements nationwide. But standing there in the sunshine, surrounded by neighbors who'd become family through shared struggle, I realized something profound. We hadn't just defeated a bully. We discovered what a real community could accomplish when good people decided to fight back together. The American dream wasn't just about individual success. It was about neighbors protecting neighbors, justice serving everyone equally, and ordinary people becoming extraordinary when circumstances demanded it. 6 months after Brenda's sentencing, Willowbrook Estates had transformed from a suburban police state into something resembling an actual community. The smell of Saturday morning barbecues and the sound of kids playing in yards without fear had replaced the tension that used to hang over our neighborhood like smog. Our new HOA board, Tom as president, Sarah as treasurer, Mike handling legal affairs, implemented radical concepts like transparency and common sense. Monthly financial reports were posted online. Board meetings were actually announced in advance, and violation notices required photographic evidence and reasonable timelines. The community garden project that Brenda would have cited into oblivion was now flourishing in the former restricted use area behind the clubhouse. Linda coordinated the planting schedule with the efficiency of someone organizing a military operation. And watching neighbors who'd barely spoken before sharing tomato seedlings was better than any therapy. Property values, ironically, had increased 15% since our dictator's removal. Turns out, buyers prefer neighborhoods known for community that defeated corruption over HOA president embezzles money while harassing minorities. Who knew? The restitution payments arrived like Christmas morning spread across 12 months. Every household received their stolen money plus interest. And watching neighbors pay down credit cards and plan actual vacations with recovered funds felt like economic justice in action. Brenda's prison reality was considerably less comfortable than her previous lifestyle. According to Clara, who'd maintained contact through guilt and morbid curiosity, our former neighborhood Napoleon was working in the prison laundry for 60 cents an hour while sharing a cell with someone who'd committed actual armed robbery. The documentary film students from State University had turned our story into Garage Door Justice, an American story, which won the regional film festival and got picked up for national distribution. I donated my appearance fees to establish the Willowbrook Automotive Education Scholarship, funded by Brenda's ongoing restitution payments, which felt like poetic justice with a mechanical twist. 3 teenagers had already received scholarships to attend technical college for automotive programs. Watching Diego Martinez, Linda's nephew, graduate from community college with an associate degree in automotive technology, was better than any car show trophy I'd ever won. My personal life had evolved in directions I'd never expected. Sarah and I had been dating, slowly and carefully, for 4 months, bonding over shared experiences of standing up to bullies and discovering that forensic accountants and mechanics had more in common than either profession might expect. The Camaro that started this entire saga was now famous in classic car circles. Featured in magazines as the car that defeated an HOA Karen, I'd received offers to sell, but some things aren't for sale, especially vehicles that accidentally became symbols of standing up to institutional racism and suburban tyranny. Every Sunday, I still drove to car shows, but now I brought neighbors' kids who were interested in learning about engines, restoration, and the satisfaction of fixing things with your own hands. Teaching Carlos Jr. how to adjust valve clearances while his father watched with pride was worth more than any commission Brenda could have stolen. The legal precedent our case established was being cited in HOA fraud prosecutions across 3 states. Mike had been invited to speak at legal conferences about fiduciary duty violations, and our documentation methods were being taught in community organizing workshops nationwide. The state legislature passed the Willowbrook Act, requiring annual financial audits for all HOAs with budgets over $50,000. The bill signing ceremony included photos with the governor, but the real victory was knowing that other neighborhoods wouldn't have to go through what we'd survived. Last month's email from a viewer in Phoenix, another veteran being harassed by his HOA president, reminded me that our story had inspired people facing similar battles across the country. I'd started consulting with other communities pro bono, sharing documentation strategies and coalition-building techniques that had worked for us. The neighborhood block parties were now monthly traditions, with everyone contributing dishes and stories, and the kind of genuine friendship that Brenda's rule had made impossible. Watching kids from different families playing together, while adults shared grilling tips and home repair advice, felt like discovering what suburbs were supposed to be. As I write this, I can hear Tom's lawnmower and smell Linda's weekend baking project drifting through my garage windows. The sounds of a healthy community, productive activity, voluntary cooperation, people choosing to help each other instead of tear each other down. Share your HOA nightmare stories in the comments below. Your documentation and persistence might inspire someone else to fight back against their neighborhood tyrant. And don't forget to subscribe for more stories proving that justice still works when ordinary people refuse to accept extraordinary injustice. Next week, Karen tries to steal military veteran's service dog. Learns about federal crimes the hard way. From all of us here at HOA Stories. Thanks so much for watching today's HOA Karen Meltdown. If you enjoyed seeing neighbors stand their ground and karma catch up, smash that like button, leave a comment with your thoughts, and subscribe so you won't miss the next HOA drama we bring you.